we are live. We're also on tape from beautiful, sunny and hot downtown Kamloops. We're in Lee's Music in state-of-the-art Studio 2. That's Chris Folds, I'm Marty Hastings, and this is Kamloops Last Week. We do have a great show today. Kamloops South-Thompson MLA Todd Stone and BC Lions head coach and co-GM Rick Campbell. All this brought to you today by our title sponsor.
This is a lock I gave one of my couples when they got married. Hi, I'm Tara Holmes from Homes is Where the Heart Is Personalized Matchmaking Limited. If you are tired of the emotional roller coaster of online dating where people are getting ghosted, there's fake profiles, and your picture is on display for everyone to see, contact me for my discreet, private, customized service where I actually meet everybody first to make sure that they're a fit for you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at HomesHeartIs or homesiswheretheheartis.ca, and maybe one day we'll be locking in your love right here.
And Chris, this segment now is normally about banter, but it's not today. We're going to talk about the story that's rocked this city, this province, the country, and the whole world.
Yes, that's the story of the tragic story of the discovery of the remains of 215 children on the grounds near the former Kamloops Indian Residential School last week. The Kamloops band released that information, and it was a shock. It was a big story because of its impact on the history of the residential schools and the people. And it's been reported from Kamloops This Week to all the media locally, all the way up to the BBC, the New York Times, CNN. It's a big story, and deservedly so.
And what stood out to you about the coverage?
Well, the coverage that I thought was interesting was that there's a lot of coverage about the actual news of the find, of the discovery, but more than that, it's the emphasis on reconciliation and what we do and don't know about the past and what we should and should not forget about the past.
There's been a lot of learning that's gone on in education. I know you went to a drum circle, and so did I, and I wasn't really sure what to expect when I went there on Monday night, and there was obviously some sadness and some consoling and some tears, mostly when I looked down onto the concourse area when people were hugging each other. But when I looked at the singing and the dancing and the drumming that was going on, that's not the overarching feeling that I left with. It was more just a togetherness that I think came from just a defiant resolve that resulted in a togetherness and people encouraging each other, and just a strength that I left feeling was palpable and powerful.
Yeah, I agree, and I think in addition to that, it is a time of mourning for the people, especially of Kamloops. But as Chief Roseanne Casimir and others have said, it's also a time for action. And I like the fact that there's anger there, and they say enough is enough, and we want the government to do something. The former Chief Manny Jules has called for an apology from the Pope and the Catholic Church, which has yet to be forthcoming, which should be coming. And people like Clayton Peters here, he was a residential school survivor. He spent 10 years at this school, and in our online at KamloopsThisWeek.com and in our newspaper, he talks about his harrowing time there, and it's harrowing. But he also talks about after this and how he got over his anger and how he got to where he is now, to realize that not every white person was bad, because he hated the white people because of what happened to him. But he works, and he's still working on it today, to get some kind of understanding, and hopefully, like he said, to make it better for all of us.
Right. When you read these stories, it's impossible to ignore, because he talked about this window right up here, and he pointed to it, and he said that's where a lot of the abuse went on. I think sitting up in that drum circle stand as well, you definitely feel a bit of guilt or shame, or I did, that this is what it took to be a participant. Like, this is what it took for me to dig a bit deeper. I think we all know generally what happened, and it's a huge landmark. We drive by that school, or we see it all the time. But have we really paid attention to what's gone on there? I know I haven't, and this story has changed that.
I think most of us have, superficially, here and there. I think one thing this will do is, and it should do, is give us all a chance, and we should do it, is to look deeper into the entire residential school system, what it did to entire generations of people. On our website at KamloopsThisWeek.com, we have a story. Jessica Wallace wrote it up. It's just a summary of the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And there's links to various formats of it, and it's really, really well worth your time to spend some hours looking into this.
Yeah, and we're going to post links to all the stories we did in the YouTube description on the Kamloops Last Week YouTube page. I also thought it'd be kind of neat to reach out to our audience this week and ask them if there's somebody from our First Nations community they'd like to hear from on this show next week. So if you want to comment on the Facebook comments, or if you want to send an email to klw@kamloopsthisweek.com, we'll see what we can do about getting a guest of your choice on the show. We're going to talk a bit more about this later with Todd Stone, but we're going to switch gears right now in the title of Hastings. BC Lions training camp coming to Kamloops finally. All of July basically, really starts July 10th. Lions have been good for a while now. You are, quite frankly, the biggest Lions fan I know. You have a shrine in your basement, or your basement is a shrine. What's your take on the season?
Yes, see, it's like the Lions, the table's falling apart. No, I'm a masochist, but I revel in it. I think this is going to be a good year. They have a new head coach, Rick Campbell, who's also going to be the defensive coordinator. I think what the biggest thing is going to be is discipline. Under the former coach, Clay Brooks, we were at the training camp and practices and watching it, and it looked like it was a good thing. And it was very light. It was very jovial, very laughing and stuff like that. Of course, the season was a disaster. So I think Rick Campbell, his dad, he's got pedigree. His dad's the legendary Hugh Campbell from the Eskimos. He's going to probably lay down a foundation of discipline and have fun, but not until you get the work done.
Well, I think training camp is as important as it's ever been this year, because the team's been off for so long. You got a brand new head coach who's also the defensive coordinator. You got a brand new offensive coordinator. So how does he come in? Like you said, it was a pretty relaxed training camp, but can he afford to come in and be a taskmaster and a drill sergeant and anger the veterans who don't want to work that hard? Or is he going to be able to find that balance and put this team on the field ready to go come the season?
Well, I don't think he has to be Vince Lombardi, and I don't think he has to be Clay Brooks either. You have to be palsy. You know, when you're a father, you're not a friend to your parent. You're a parent to your parent. And I think a lot of the veterans want a little more structure. They want to be told this is what we're going to do. I think he can do it because there's a whole bunch of new players, especially on defense, where they really needed the help. And I think he's gonna make that his mark. And then, like they say, defense wins championships, and it'll flow from there.
We did talk to Rick Campbell, and we're going to play a piece of that interview right now.
My boss and my co-host of this show, getting a little older, but he can remember. He's a huge Lions fan, diehard Lions fan. He can remember the old days, and he can remember your dad. And he didn't exactly like your dad. What's it like? He might have been public enemy number one in BC for football fans. What's it like coming to a team, coming kind of full circle, and to be head coach of the Lions, having that history?
Yeah, that's the good news about people not liking people in sports and rivalries and stuff. It means that the teams were good, and that's all good stuff to me. You know, I respect the past and history and all that stuff, and I know it real well. I'm a CFL lifer, so to speak, but just kind of making my own way and doing my thing. And I played against the Lions, where BC place is loud and rocking and a tough place to play, and I want to be a part of that. So I'm hoping we can make that happen here.
3 years since the Lions have had a playoff game. They haven't had a winning record since 2016. How important is it for you to get into the postseason in year one and try and put this club back on a winning path?
Well, that's what we're in it for. That's what I hope that we all have the attitude is you go into every year going in to win the Grey Cup. That's what you do. Now, before that, there's a whole process you got to go through, and that's doing all the things to put yourself in the best position possible to win. The West Division's very competitive in the CFL right now. All the teams are good in the West, but I see no reason with the players that we have and the coaches we have and the support we have that we can throw our hat in the ring and be competitive right away. I've never been a big talker on predicting the amount of wins or things like that, but I am confident in that if we work hard and do the right things, then we can be there right there with anybody else, and that's what we'll do.
There's been some divisiveness that's resulted from vaccinations and team stances.
I don't think it's going to be a divisive issue, but we've actually had a couple seminars with our players about, I think it's up to each individual, but we tell the guys that are hesitant about it or have concerns is to make sure you do all the homework and, medical advice, doctors, really get good information that you can make a proper decision for yourself. So we're not going to mandate it on anyone. But I sure hope people do all the homework they can do And if you're going to play, if you're going to be in the business of pro sports where you're with large groups of people and you're going to be traveling and all those things, it sure looks like vaccines are really going to help that cause.
XFL merger. If that were to happen, what's your stance on the rules of the game and how it should be played?
Well, that hasn't been at the forefront of my mind, but if we're just talking football and all that, I think the reason that the CFL has always stayed around, you've seen a lot of leagues come and go other than the NFL, but the CFL is a really good game and a really good product because of a lot of the rules. And there's even a lot of stuff happening in the NFL right now that wouldn't have happened 15, 20 years ago, like small, fast receivers, athletic quarterbacks, like Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson aren't playing in the NFL 15, 20 years ago. They're playing in the CFL. So it just shows you that the CFL's had a huge influence on football, and it's been the exciting part of football, which is an open game with fast players that can make plays. And so I sure hope that whatever happens with that a ton of the CFL concepts are in there, not only for tradition, but also because I think it makes the product exciting.
Okay, Rick, we'll end with a softball for you here. BCLions.com tells me that you've done the grouse grind a few times. You enjoy checking out local breweries as well. Have you had a chance to learn anything about the hiking trails we have here in Kamloops, world class? And I think we have 5 breweries, we have distilleries and wineries. Any chance that during the small amount of off time you have, you might check some of that out?
I will definitely do it. I'd love some advice because I'm an outdoors type of guy. So always up for a beer and always up for a hike. Usually the hike before the beer, but no, I definitely want to check that out. That's something that's been fun for me. I've been to Vancouver a ton of times visiting in my life, but kind of hanging out more in the city and all that stuff. And to get outside and around and to see how much stuff there is to see is pretty remarkable. So training camp will be busy, but I will definitely make some time to check out Kamloops and steer me towards a couple hikes, and I'll do it for sure.
Chris, that was interesting hearing Rick Campbell respond to the question about Hugh Campbell. I know you have a bit of a history with Hugh Campbell. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, as a Lion fan growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, when the Lions played Edmonton, it was like the Canucks experiences playing the Oilers. The fans it went to Gretzky. The Edmonton team, they were 5 straight Grey Cups. We hated them. We called them the Evil Empire. When I was in grade 4, 9 years old, I had 10 days in the hospital. And that's when I first got into the Lions. I was watching a game with the nurse after my surgery, watching the Western Final. They lost 38-1 at Commonwealth Stadium. Vic Rapp, the greatest coach of all time for the Lions, was running across the field, and he was shaking his fist at a smirking Hugh Campbell because he thought Hugh Campbell ran up the score. Ever since, I hate the green and gold.
Do you still, when you see Rick Campbell, do you still have these feelings inside of you of disdain?
I can't, because the son is not responsible for the sins of the father.
That's true. Okay, well, now we know how you feel about Hugh Campbell. Not sure how you feel about the BC Liberal leadership race, but we're going to find out in the next segment, which is Above the Folds.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Chris, I'm going to let you take it away and just give us your thoughts on the leadership race.
Okay, we're talking about the BC Liberals today. They have many issues with the party. They're in a basically a regrowth. They're retooling because they've been in the political wilderness, figuratively and literally. Like, they're in the rural and they're not in the minds of a lot of people, and they are doing a reassessment. And part of that is the leadership race. Andrew Wilkinson stepped down as leader last fall. And right now we have four candidates for leadership. It's Gavin Dew, who's a businessman. Michael Lee is an MLA in Vancouver. Ellis Ross is another MLA from Skeena. He's the former chief of the Haisla Nation up in Skeena. And Kevin Falcon just announced, and he's the sort of the big name, because Kevin Falcon was a powerful cabinet minister under Christy Clark's government, and he ran for the leadership in 2018, along with Todd Stone and I think 5 others. And that leadership race was won by Andrew Wilkinson.
So does he automatically become the favorite, Kevin?
I'm not sure if he becomes a favorite, because he has well, people say some baggage. He's a little more right. He's a conservative in this sort of right-wing coalition. He's a federal conservative. He also endorsed Maxime Bernier back in the day, and Bernier, of course, is now seen as an extremist politician. Falcon has said, well, he never met him at the time. He disliked some of his policies. He does have some baggage with Christy Clark's government. Some flip-flops on the tolling of the bridges in the Massey Tunnel and the bridge, some lower mainland issues. But he does have name cachet for sure.
What about the charisma factor? Because that was an issue with Wilkinson. You look up here at the candidates, is there somebody that stands out that you think that has kind of that it factor?
Well, Ellis Ross he's a very big YouTube presence, Facebook presence, and when he talks, it's really engaging. I don't know much about Gavin Dew other than I've heard an interview with him. He's a businessman with he's very into business. Michael Lee and Kevin Falcon are experienced politicians. I think Andrew Wilkinson was a brilliant man. He is a lawyer and a doctor, those two degrees. But he's a very academic. And when you've seen him, he didn't have the Clinton, he didn't have the Obama, he didn't have the Kennedy, or even the Trudeau mystique. So I think part of it is they need policy, but they need personality.
Our next guest, I'm sure, is going to have a lot of thoughts on this. We're going to introduce him in our next segment, which is Last Week, This Week. We're going to talk politics, obviously, but first we do want to ask you about the news that broke last week out of Kamloops, the discovery of the remains of 215 children on the grounds of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. How has this story affected you?
Well, it's nothing short of tragic. My heart goes out to all of the families, all of the survivors, and I think the entire community, everyone in Kamloops, and frankly around the entire province, are doing some soul searching these days, and rightfully so. We all have a heck of a lot more to learn. I certainly do. I've had some wonderfully thoughtful discussions, not just recently, but over years with elders at Kamloops Tishaquepam. I've had I've built some phenomenal friendships with lots of members of the community, and I still have a heck of a lot to learn. So I think right now it's about listening and supporting. Not just the Kamloops Band, but the First Nations peoples right across this province, because this really, the epicenter at the moment might be the Kamloops Residential School, but let's remember that children were sent to Kamloops from all over British Columbia for the most part, and so I think it's an important time to reflect. And to really listen and support First Nations in any way that we possibly can moving forward.
There have been a lot of stories that have come pouring out since this news broke. Is there anything that stands out to you about the coverage since this story broke?
Well, look, whether it's the Truth and Reconciliation Commission or any number of the other government and First Nations initiatives over the years to dive deep into what happened at the Kamloops Residential School and residential schools like it across the country. These stories have been documented, many of them. Survivors, elders, community members have been talking about what happened at these residential schools and the trauma, the impacts that's had on multiple generations ever since. I think that what might be a little bit different this time around is it seems to be because it's impacted people so viscerally. This might be, I hope this is the moment where we go from talk and reports and move to action and actually stepping up and beginning to take tangible steps to actually rectify the wrongs of the past and to rededicate ourselves like never before to reconciliation moving forward.
I think you're right. I think it's almost like it's a weird, unfortunate thing. It takes something really, really beyond the pale bad to really maybe wake us up and get us over that hurdle that's been sitting there for so long. So I think you're right about that. And I think you hear that in the comments from the First Nations, where the resolve is there to say enough's enough. Let's get some action going on here.
Well, and I think if I may, I just add this one final point. I think that the outpouring of sympathy and support and compassion, frankly, from the broader community in Kamloops and the area. When I'm in Victoria right now, but my understanding is as there have been drumming ceremonies in the evenings in the last few days. The arbor has been overrun with people. There have been long lines and vehicles backed up on the highway and so forth. I think that, again, this is perhaps a moment in time where we actually have captured the attention of the broad public as to the need to do good by our First Nations brothers and sisters. And so certainly that, I think, is the commitment that all of us need to make to one another moving forward. And if we can do that, then that this horrific situation which has come to light, again, in the context of the Kamloops Residential School, may actually be that moment that triggers meaningful, lasting action moving forward.
That's what some of the survivors have told us as well. That's right. Okay. Going on to politics, because we're here to talk about politics as well. The BC Liberal Party is in sort of a rethinking, rebuilding mode. I think you'd agree. You had mentioned before something about you wanted to be a more big tent, more inclusive party. You have some ideas for the party. Part of that sort of rebuilding is the leadership race right now. We have Gavin Dew, Michael Lee, Kevin Falcon, Ellis Ross declared. I think the leadership election isn't until next February, so there's lots of time for more people to join. What are your thoughts on the four leaders right now, and have you backed any of them?
No, I haven't come to any decision yet in terms of backing a specific candidate, but I will tell you this, I'm very excited by the broad range of people that are stepping up. You named a number of those candidates. Michael Lee is officially announcing next week. Ellis Ross is already in the race. Kevin Falcon, who is no stranger to the BC Liberal Party and the political scene in the province, has officially jumped in. Gavin Dew. We're also hearing that Renee Merrifield, who's a really a talented, articulate, smart, new MLA for us in Kelowna. She may be throwing her hat in the ring. And Val Littman, who was the president of the BC Chamber of Commerce, is also out there actively talking to folks and considering a run. So, those are six very different but very talented individuals that very likely could be in this race. It's going to be a long haul. When I ran in 2017, 2018 for leader, it was about a 3 to 3.5 month process for me at that time. This is, there's 9 months left in this race. And so I think it's going to go through a number of ebbs and flows and ups and downs. And, 1 week, one candidate might, really come out with a bang with a new, really big, bold idea. And the next week it might be somebody else. And, ground game is going to really matter, and
or a faux pas here and there. You ran in 18, and we asked you if you're going to run this time, but you said no, and you cited specifically you have a young family, and time with the family is crucial because in a blink of an eye they're going to be grown up. I know what that's like. Just briefly, what was it like in that leadership race back then? How taxing was it? How time consuming was it?
Oh, it's 24/7. I mean, being an elected official at the provincial level when the capital is in Victoria, means we're in Victoria for 5 months of the year. Usually Sunday through Thursday. So that takes a toll, obviously, on one's families and loved ones back home, wherever you happen to be from. When you're running for leader, and certainly if you're successful in pursuing that, it's a 24/7 job. You are required to be on every day of the week. I certainly saw that in the time I spent with Gordon Campbell back in the day. I as a cabinet member serving in Christy Clark's government, I saw that with her. I saw that with Andrew Wilkinson, our former leader, and I see that now with Shirley Bond, our interim leader, who, by the way, for all intents and purposes, is working as hard, if not harder, than the previous leaders of this party. She is a machine, and so that's the level of commitment that's required. And so for me, this time around, you're right. It came down to family for me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm excited to continue to represent Kamloops South, and who knows what the future holds in terms of leadership and so forth. But my daughters are in those early teen years now. It's important for their dad to be home as much as possible, or at least not to be away more than he already is.
Sure.
That's where the Stone family's at.
Okay.
Todd, you used the words big and bold. I think some people are going to be looking for some personality and some charisma from the new leader. Is there somebody of the candidates that have come forward so far that stands out in your mind in that regard?
Oh, yeah. Again, I think they all have unique personality traits, and Renee Merrifield is a very successful business person in Kelowna. She has built a very significant company there, and Michael Lee is no stranger now to BC politics, and has a very fascinating background. If you look at Ellis Ross, the possibility of actually having an Indigenous person, a former chief, Haisla chief, as the leader of the official opposition, and potentially the next premier of British Columbia, could be monumental, not just in our party but for the province. And I will add, Kevin Falcon is no shrinking violet. He's a hard worker. He's got a great sense of humor. He's known for being a fierce warrior in the political arena. There's a reason the NDP are already dropping bombs or trying to drop bombs on his head every day. He's obviously a highly perceived threat. But the 10 years that he's been out of politics, I will say, because he's got two young daughters, much younger than mine, I think the edges have been softened a little bit. He's a dad now, and he's got a great wife and two beautiful little girls, and so I think that really informs his view or his outlook moving forward. So they all have great stories. They all have really unique backgrounds, and that's why they add so much to this, to what I think will be a really dynamic leadership race.
I think you're right. I think what you do need, though, you need someone like, with all due respect, Andrew Wilkinson was a brilliant man, but he didn't have that connection to the people I think a lot of people wanted. He didn't have that sort of Kennedy, Obama, that the it thing. So I think personality is for this party now almost as important as policy. But let's get to the name change. Kevin Falcon has brought it up. It was brought up before. Christy Clark brought it up before. The name of the BC Liberal Party, it's fascinating as it goes back because it's been a party more than 100 years, but in reality, it's sort of like the social credit people came over here. It's still the Free Enterprise Coalition. When Wacky Bennett said the socialist hordes are at the gates, this is what it is still. What's your thoughts on a name change?
Well, it's not as easy as it sounds. I've been through the discussions, the two previous more current discussions that the party has formally undertaken on a name change, and it's not easy. For every person that thinks the name should change, there's a person that thinks that the name should be retained. But I will say this: it does feel a little different today than it has in the past when we've had these discussions. I do think that Kevin is onto something. I personally support changing the name. I think it would be an important component of hitting a great big reset button for the party. That being said, I've also been very clear that simply changing the name of the party, is meaningless if the values of this party, what we stand for, the policy priorities that we put out there for British Columbians to consider, if the vision that we put on the table isn't compelling, nothing. If those items aren't taken care of, concurrently, changing the name of the party is really just window dressing. So. I think the party will undertake a pretty thorough examination of this again. It's not clear to me if that will happen during the leadership race or if it would be triggered by a Kevin Falcon victory, perhaps in February of next year. More likely the latter, frankly. It's similar to what happened in Alberta when Jason Kenney, first became the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, and they merged with Wild Rose and changed their name to the United Conservative Party. Happened at the federal level too. So I do think it's worthy of pursuing, but it's got to be done concurrent with all that other stuff I talked about, and it's got to be done with bringing the party membership along with you.
Well, you guys better start getting going on patenting some names, because the BC party's gone, the West Coast party's gone. Everyone, all the great names are already held by some fringe parties, so you might have to buy some domains there. We could wrap this. I'd like to wrap this up with something light here. Everyone knows Todd Stone is a political junkie. You're on the radio NL. You're talking to us. You're all over the place. You love politics. What does Todd Stone do outside of politics? What do you do in your free time? What do you like to do? What's your favorite beer? Do you golf? What do you like to do?
Well, I love beer. I really do, and all kinds of beer. My favorite though would be a good IPA. And so, Red Collar's got a fabulous IPA in Kamloops. Fat Tug on Vancouver Island here is a spectacular IPA as well. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I enjoy doing most is actually barbecue and smoking meat. I do a lot of cooking actually at home, and a lot of that I actually do with the kids. We've done that over the years. I've got a great big smoker, and I love trying new recipes and different cuts of meat and so forth. And it's something that you really can get some insights into your kids' lives when you're actually when they don't think you're actually talking about their lives,
right?
But you're doing something together, and for us that tends to be something around the smoker or in the kitchen. As a family, we love to hike. We do a lot of hiking in the Kamloops area, and all of our girls have always enjoyed that. And so those would be a few of the things that Todd Stone's up to when he's not on the radio or in the legislature.
Okay, Todd, one more softball here for you. I've noticed on Twitter you've occasionally taken a jab or two at the Kelowna Rockets. Okay, 2023 Memorial Cup. Blazers, they want it. The Rockets, they want it. Are you going to put your weight behind this bid? And any comments in general on the Kelowna Rockets organization?
Oh, well, I mean, it's good to have them in the league so we can keep beating them. Fair enough. But let's have the Memorial Cup in Kamloops. The only thing I would say is the only way that the Rockets ever make it to the Memorial Cup is when they host it, and the host team automatically gets to play in the tournament, right? We've always earned our way into the tournament. So I'm really proud of the boys. The Blazers, the last two seasons, albeit in a pandemic environment, have just shot the lights out. And I think most of the team is going to remain intact for next season. And I can't wait to get into the stands. I'm not going to sing though, just so we're clear. That was a one night only
one-off thing.
Thing in the legislature here.
Hello out there, we're on the air. It's hockey night tonight. Tension grows, the whistle blows, and the puck goes down the ice.
Well, maybe if we get back to normal, we can have you in here person. If we can get a kitchen, you can cook us a meal while we interview you. That'd be good.
Best pulled pork you've ever had. That's my commitment to you.
We'll hold you to that.
Strong words. Okay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, see ya.
That's pretty much been the show for today. We've covered a lot of ground. I do again want to thank Tara Holmes. Homes is where the heart is, personalized matchmaking. We're always looking for sponsors. If you want to join the Last Week clique, Chris at ktwdigital.com or Marty at klw@kamloopsthisweek.com. I want to thank Rick Campbell, Todd Stone, Magic Mike and Bonnie once again doing their thing, smashing the buttons and trying to make us look good despite a few faux pas today, I might add. We appreciate what you do, and we'll see everybody last week.
Last.